What's going on, guys? I know I haven't made a video in a while, but I've made like 4 videos on this timing issue, and I just couldn't make another one without being certain, but I finally figured it out, and boys, we are back. So for those of you who haven't seen my channel or any of my videos, basically the car would warm up fine, and randomly after about 5 or 10 minutes of driving, it would just lose like all of its power. And sometimes it would have a check engine light, sometimes it wouldn't. If it did, it would be like a primary ignition fault. Sometimes it would have like random stuff on the 5-volt ref. So I've made like 3 or 4 videos talking about the grounds and the 5-volt ref in these cars, and they are problematic. Like those videos, I'm not going to delete them or anything, but this issue was completely separate. It wasn't electrical. So if you have one of these cars, or really any VK powered vehicle, I highly recommend checking out a YouTube channel called Edbwoy. This guy's great. He's got like 10 of these cars. He's crazy. He's got like 4 Q45s. He's got a bunch of M's. I think he's got an M56 now, but he's also really knowledgeable, and he does breakdown videos on the engines, difference between the JDM engines. He's just got lots of good content. But anyways, I was watching his videos, and he has a 2006, like that gen, I think they're Y50 M45, and they're basically the same as an M35. They are almost identical, except for they have our drivetrain in them. So he had replaced the plastic undercar tray with a aluminum one. I'm not sure why, just I guess for rocks or whatever. It also looks nice, but what happened was the difference between the VQ and the VK, for whatever reason, it just rubbed a little bit on, I think it was the oil pan, something on the drivetrain rubbed, and it caused the computer to pull timing. Now in his video, he describes it as limp mode, and I haven't seen the video, but I've passed by it, and I didn't even think about it because we have a real limp mode. Limp mode on our car, will go to 3,000 RPM. Every light is on the dash. It runs super rich. I've had limp mode a few times. You'll get it if your mass airflow sensor or an O2 sensor goes out. It'll just completely, it's limping home. That's literally what it's for, to get off the highway kind of thing. But that's not what was happening. He describes it as limp mode, but realistically, he doesn't have any check engine lights. To be fair, for his car, it was as soon as he started it up. Like he would turn the ignition on and it was just running like crap right away. Whereas mine, sometimes it would run for an hour completely fine. We would go for, we drive out to Mission, and 3/4 of the drive it's fine, and then randomly it starts doing this power loss. Right? It felt like the throttle was sticking. If you've watched my videos, I've replaced so many parts. I was a parts changer. I replaced a throttle body. Every sensor in the car has been swapped. I even dug into the harness. I cut open the harness. And I'm new to this, right? I'm not an expert in this stuff. So I'd find like a tiny bit of corrosion and be like, look, here's problem solved, right? We got corrosion on the main ECU, and there's 2 main grounds for all this stuff, F8 and F9. I'll put them up on the screen here. But basically these grounds are responsible for like everything. Like there's, the ECU, the TCM, O2 sensors, everything is grounded on here. And I would clean them up, and sure enough, the car would drive much better. It would go for a couple days this time with no issue. But it would always come back, randomly. It would be temperature. Sometimes it'd be when it was warm, sometimes it would be cold. And I just went down this rabbit hole for like a year plus, trying to figure out what electrical issue this was, whether it was the alternator. And to my credit, I would make changes, and I would get results. It would feel much different, and I would make a video about them, but it would always come back. And finally I got sick of it, and I just haven't made a video since, until I saw Edbwoy's video. And as soon as I saw that, I just had this click moment where I was like, I know of so many different cars that have had this issue with long tube headers, where something in the exhaust touches something on the body, and that micro vibration is sent through the exhaust into the block, and the knock sensors pick it up and it pulls timing. Now, usually these cars, they're like late gen, mostly Chevys, Fords, stuff like that. And every time they have this issue, they just have a misfire code. Well, I never got those codes, right? If I got codes, it was rare. And if I did, they were like, completely random. It never led me to misfire. So anyways, for these cars, for whatever reason, when that happens, when it detects false knock, it doesn't throw a misfire code. We have misfire codes. We have them. They're, I'll put them up on the screen here. I don't know them off by heart, but we have misfire codes, and it would not throw them. It will just pull ignition timing until eventually it hits 0. I logged it on Nissan Datascan. I would go up a hill, and it would be at 0 degrees timing advance with no check engine light. It's crazy. So anyways, what had happened was the O2 extender. So I'll put it up on the screen. I didn't take a video. I was under the car, dirty, and I was just in a rush. But so for those who haven't seen my videos, I've got Nissan Titan JBA Shorty headers, and when they were installed, we used O2 extenders, which are basically like a little 90-degree bend that the oxygen sensor will screw into, and that tells the computer that the catalytic converters, which are no longer there, are working great. And when they were installed, it's very tight, like there's not much room. So they make a kind of little 90-degree bend, and that little extra inch, basically what was happening is, even though it wasn't touching, when the engine flexes, that little elbow would rub on the heat shield. And if you were just under the car, you wouldn't even look at it because it's got like a good inch. But I got underneath it and I looked behind it, and sure enough, there's a little shiny spot where it was rubbing. So probably under load, which makes sense. This is usually when it would happen, going up a hill or something. The engine would flex, and that little O2 extender would rub, and the vibration would get sent through the exhaust into the block. Knock sensors would pick it up, and it would pull timing. So I bashed that heat shield flat with a hammer, and I've driven for about 2 weeks. I've had this solved for about a month, but I was not going to make another video until I had 100% certainty. I needed that smoking gun. Like all these other previous fixes were just kind of like a theory, right? It's like, okay, corrosion in the ground wires, clean up the ground wires, car runs great. It's like, that's not enough, man. That's really not enough. And this was the first time that I could like get that aha moment. So man, it just feels so good to have this car back. And like so many other little things were tied to that. Like I'm sure even when it was like, when I would think that it was full timing, I'm not driving around with the computer on all the time, but I would feel weird shifts and stuff like that. And it never went down to 0 degrees where I can literally like see it on the wideband. It's like 10-to-1 air fuel. It's crazy. But I'm almost certain that I was getting a lot of different drivability stuff, because when I fix this, man, the car just, everything is better. It shifts better. Fuel economy is way up. I'm getting like 15, 16 miles per gallon city now, which is just like crazy. But yeah, man, awesome. If you guys have had any exhaust work, especially stuff up front, it's usually not stuff in the back, but like the front half of your exhaust, if you've done anything and you're having random weird engine power loss, yeah, check your exhaust. But anyways, there's actually a really easy test for this. I wish I'd seen this video before, because it's really simple. You just hit it with a hammer and the vibration going through the exhaust, you'll hear the sound of anything that's touching, which probably wouldn't work for me actually, because it was only under load. So one of the things that I had done before I figured this out was I'd cut into the harness. I'd actually replaced a good 1.5 feet of wire. To be fair, it was corroded. There was a fair bit of corrosion there, but I had cut these wires out, and when I repaired them, I used these things called solder seals. I'm sure you've seen them. They're on every ad on Amazon, but these things are basically a little heat shrink piece with a tiny bit of low temperature solder. So you connect your wires, you bundle them up, twist them up, and then you slide one of these things over, and then you just hit it with a heat gun, and the solder melts into the wires, and you get a nice connection. And honestly, they're great. Like, they are really cool, but I just don't think that they're good in a car. I don't think in an automotive sense they're worth it, because the vibration, the heat in the engine bay is probably getting pretty close to what that solder melts at. And I think that's what had happened, is one of my repairs had failed, because I started getting random check engine lights about the key. So basically, this key will talk to a little antenna ring in here, and it'll disable NATS, which is our anti-theft system. So my symptoms were I would press unlock outside the car, obviously, and sometimes the horn would go off, like it was the wrong key. The door would unlock, and the engine would turn over, no problem, but I would get a P1614, which is a NATS error code. So I went into my repaired wires, and I replaced some of the wires with a proper crimp, and that fixed the key issue. But I still got this. So this is kind of weird. When it's cold, it doesn't do it, but when it's warm, it does, which probably tells me that that there's some more of those solder seals that are just, you know, yeah, they pass the tug test, but they're not a good enough connection, especially when it's warm. But yeah, so anyways, check this out. So I'll press lock. Now when I press unlock, this light is supposed to fade on, and then when you press lock, it's supposed to fade off. So here we press unlock. See that? That's weird. Sometimes it won't even come on at all. It'll blink a few times and stay off. I will press lock. Fades nice. Unlock. Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's not supposed to do that. I believe that's probably something in that bundle of grounds that I had messed with. But yeah, I'm just so happy to have this thing back. Like, having this thing be able to be daily driven, I can't express how annoying this is. Like, you would sit in traffic, and most driving is done pretty slow. Like, most driving is 10 miles an hour, right? You're sitting first to second gear, coast for a little bit, slow down, second to first gear, sit there for a second, continue to coast for a second. Well, when this issue would happen, that first to second shift would slam into gear. If you left it in 4 or drive, it was insane. 100% line pressure, slam shifts at low coast. The low coast shifts were brutal. Once you were going, they were fine. But man, the low coast shifts were brutal. And it really made me not want to drive the car. It really sucked. It felt like I was driving like a manual. It wasn't even a manual, because at least with a manual you can be gentle with it. It was just awful, and it really made me not like driving the car. And having that back, man, this thing is so fun to drive. This thing is just butter smooth. I can't express how much I love driving this thing. But anyways, a few other things did happen with the car. I'm not gonna get too far into it. It's just kind of negative. One of my neighbors had keyed my car and actually deflated one of my tires. And I didn't realize right away. So when I drove only about 10-15 kilometers, but the tire was at 8 psi, and it cracked the sidewall. So I had to get a new tire. The car is back on winters right now, but I've replaced the tire, and yeah, it should be fine. I only put 5,000 or 6,000 kilometers on the summers, but it really sucks. I will fix the scratch. I've already put paint on it and stuff. It's one of those things where I'm not too worried about that, because I am going to paint this car eventually. But man, just knowing that someone really knowing that someone feels that way towards me and the car, I really don't like it. So yeah, don't key cars, guys. It's really it's disgusting behavior. But anyways, we're not going to focus on that. The car's running great. We are back. We got nice weather. It's literally going to be any one of these days. We're going to go out and make a hit on the street, and we'll see where it's at, man. Because think about this. The car ran a 14.2 at 96 miles an hour with the old differential and the timing issue. Now, I don't know if it was the timing issue the whole way, right? I didn't have the computer on it, but it had the exhaust. right? So we don't know what this car's potential is. We have no idea. It could go out there and run a high 13 on the street easily. I have no idea. The butt dyno says that it's big time difference, like especially in the higher gears. Third and fourth gear just pull so hard now. It's crazy. You know, I would look down at the air feel, but here's the thing. The air feel isn't going to tell you much unless you're like all the timing is gone, right? If it was pulling 5 or 6 degrees, it would still be very similar air feel. So yeah, I have no idea what it's gonna run, boys. I have no idea, but I'll be sure to make a video when we do. You know I will. Anyways, I know this has just been a rant, but I feel like I haven't made a video in a long time. Yeah, we're back. We are officially back. Next video will either be a street hit or potentially something else. I'm not sure, but yeah, big things coming, boys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.